Hey, good evening, everybody. Thanks for joining the Digital Weather Desk powered by Century Next Bank. I'm Jared Floyd. It is a rockin' and rolling Tuesday evening across the area. And as I mentioned earlier, we had a previously scheduled event launching the Digital Weather Desk and an event that could not be rescheduled. And so that is where I've been for the last hour and a half while these severe thunderstorm warnings have been ongoing. And you can guarantee it was driving me absolutely bonkers to not be in front of the desk and bringing you the latest information. So let's just jump right to it. There are numerous severe thunderstorm warnings in effect across the area. A lot of them are now, for lack of a better term, kind of outflow driven. But here's a look at what's going on across the region. Numerous severe thunderstorm warnings out, and I just drove through a lot of the heavier downpours that we're seeing in Monroe and kind of south of town in Midtown and some of the surrounding areas, and they are not storms that you want to be driving in. And they are producing some very heavy downpours and some very frequent cloud-to-ground lightning. So, again, if you hear the thunder, go ahead and move on inside. There's numerous clusters of thunderstorms. I'm going to pause the radar for just a second, and a new severe thunderstorm warning out. Let's take a look at that. That's for Lincoln, Washita, and Union parishes, and it goes until 7:15. That large cluster of storms still moving southwest at about 15 miles per hour, 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts, and quarter-sized hail are possible. And you can see some of the hotter radar returns with some of those storms. We'll start off with the storm that's moving through Columbia County and Union County in southern Arkansas. That severe thunderstorm warning goes out for another half hour or so with the storms that are moving through that area. And again, as we take on live streams in a new platform, I won't necessarily talk at you the entire time. There will be times where I have to kind of absorb information and process information and pass that along. We are at 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts and in 1-inch hail, quarter-sized hail possible with this storm as it moves off to the south at about, again, 15 to 20 miles per hour. The larger cluster of storms, and perhaps the more notable of the thunderstorms, as you start seeing folks hopping into the comments, just drove through light hail, maybe pea-sized from Jeremy on 165 near the Forsyth extension. That does not surprise me. I was hearing a few what sounded like pea-sized hail with these storms as they move off to the south and west. This is the larger cluster of storms. I'll get to the Richland Parish, Franklin Parish storm in just a minute as well. But here's a look at the cluster of storms. And also mind you that as these storms moved through the airport earlier, and I'll go ahead and loop it over the last 30 minutes or so. Actually, I'm going to go ahead and loop it over the last 2 hours. And we are just getting slammed again with the rainfall as I just kind of look out the window to see what's going on. But here's the new severe thunderstorm warnings out until 7:15 for portions of Union, Lincoln, Washita parishes. This is going to include areas like Downsville and Calhoun and points out in the western portions of Washita Parish. A good chunk of Union Parish as well, as these storms move off to the south and west. Now, here's the loop that I was telling you about. And as this storm moved through the Monroe Regional Airport, 68-mile-an-hour wind gust observed at the Monroe Airport. So nearly 70-mile-an-hour winds. Again, that's that downburst capability that you have with a lot of these storms as they move through the region, as they basically build up over one area and then collapse over the same area. So they build up super, super tall, and then they collapse down to the surface, and these are the kind of issues that you run into. I was going to get to the other severe thunderstorm warning out for portions of Richland and Franklin parishes. We will look at that storm, but the severe thunderstorm warning with this storm has been allowed to expire. East of Mangum, this is the storm that I'm talking about right here. Again, east of Mangum, east of Highway 425, generally moving off to the south. Again, while it's still perhaps producing some strong wind gusts, but generally kind of collapsing. This is for lack of a better term, the main storm, the main focus of a lot of the activity. I'm going to take some stuff down. The lightning, that's a lot going on the screen right there. But here's a look at the severe thunderstorm warnings out again for Union, Lincoln, Washita parishes until 7:15. For southeastern Union, most of Washita parishes, that's another warning that goes until 7. Two different warnings stretching out over the next 45 minutes or so as folks continue to say getting bad out toward past the paper mill in West Monroe. I wouldn't be surprised by that at all. The heaviest storm activity that we're seeing right now, I'll take the warning information down, but the heaviest rainfall is just south of Highway 2 as you move from Farmerville to Rocky Branch. I wouldn't be surprised to maybe see some nickel-sized hail, perhaps even larger in those particular areas. And then also as you move south of Monroe, as you move toward the Charmingdale and Richwood communities, and really just essentially right along the Washita River, south of the Brownsville-Balcomville communities as you move out, 30, 33 in some of those areas as well. In the southern portions of the parish, I wouldn't be surprised to see some nickel-sized hail there as well. Again, these storms do have a history of producing up to 68-mile-an-hour winds at the Monroe Regional Airport just a while back. So I would say that was observed. Hang on, let me give you an exact time on that. It was shortly before 5:40, about 5:39 is when the Monroe Regional Airport observed, again, 68-mile-an-hour winds as those storms move off to the south and west. Thanks so much for joining us on the Digital Weather Desk, powered by Century Next Bank. This is a look at the radar currently from the National Weather Service in Shreveport. A look at the wind gusts. I had these pulled up because they looked a lot more menacing when you had the 68-mile-an-hour gusts last hour. Here's a look at the severe weather alerts as they're seen. Again, the active warnings that are currently in place, along with obviously what's unfolding across north central Louisiana. So I'll go back to the radar. We'll go ahead and set the loop back up. Heavy rain, lightning just passed through North Monroe off Forsyth. Tree down on a power line off of Park Avenue. Energy is on site. I will also stress to folks as energy crews start responding to these areas that with lightning in the area, it's going to take time for power restoration. Give me a few seconds and we'll try to pull up some power numbers for you. I will try to pull up some outage numbers just so we can kind of look at some of those numbers as well. Bear with me, folks. I'm going to do some stuff on the fly just so we can get some information. Again, for those that are used to watching things on television and things of that nature, this is going to be a little different, a little bit more, I don't want to say casual, but a little bit more slower pace, not as quite as intense. I'm not going to be sitting here talking at you constantly. Feel free to tag folks in the live if they're wondering what's going on. Be prepared and just kind of let them know what's going on. Here's a look at some of the power outages. Again, 2,500 customers without power in Washita Parish. That, again, is unofficial, but just kind of a reminder of some of the numbers that we're dealing with currently. So I'll go back to the loop real quick. Again, a look at some of the warnings that are in place. Again, the heaviest rainfall is just east of Lake D'Arbonne. So if you have some folks in Union Parish, I'm telling you, just east of Farmerville, that's where we're seeing the heaviest activity currently. Meteorologist Alex Noel, lights are out on the northern half of ULM's campus. That also does not surprise me. Alex was actually in town to visit family and to come to the event that we just had celebrating the Digital Weather Desk. The irony of having a celebration and an event and then feeling the need to leave your own event early so you can come back here and actually do what the event's all about, which is informing the public. Again, the irony there. But anyway, a look at the radar. Put the lightning back on because I don't want folks to lose sight of that. I don't want folks trying to get out and take pictures and things of that nature. I've already had some folks sending me some pictures. Yeah, starting to get some pictures. Jeremy just sent me. Jeremy, if you're watching the stream still, wall cloud, no. Shelf cloud, yes. Just in case you're watching. Again, getting some viewer photos of some folks that are seeing the larger cluster of storms moving west as it moves through the region. The Red Wing community of West Carroll Parish, no rain yet, but lots of thunder. Thanks so much. I'm just kind of going back through some of the comments to make sure I didn't miss anything. Again, we got a lot of folks, got several folks joining us on YouTube, but now well over 100 folks joining us live on Facebook Live. Thanks so much for taking time out to take a look at what this is what the Digital Weather Desk is designed to do, is to provide you information a little bit less intense in terms of just in your face, constantly talking and telling you what to do all the time, but just a little bit more, I say relaxed, but in a little bit more of a casual manner. And so I can bring you this information in kind of the calmest manner possible. When you get to such urgency, sometimes you feel like you're screaming at folks. And really, the key to all of this is being inside, staying sheltered away from windows and doors, and just protecting yourself from severe thunderstorms. We've been through severe thunderstorms so many times before. So just, again, make sure that you're in your safe place. You don't necessarily need to be, panicking and going and finding helmets and stuff like that. Just go inside. Just move inside. Stay away from the lightning. Stay sheltered. Should be good to go. Again, just kind of joining our comments as well, just making sure. And if you have reports, feel free to pass them along. Please do not step outside and try to take pictures of anything. Just want you sheltered and safe. This severe thunderstorm warning that continues across southwestern Arkansas. Moving to the south. Should be crossing Highway 82, I would say, in the next 2 or 3 minutes. So if you have folks traveling from Magnolia to El Dorado or vice versa, just let them know this is a severe thunderstorm, 60-mile-an-hour winds, and quarter-sized hail will be possible with that storm as it moves off to the south. Now let's go back to the storm in northern Louisiana. In fact, let's just look at them both at the same time. And as I stop and we kind of walk and step through this, you can see the outflow boundary from the earlier thunderstorm, the gust front, whatever you want to call it, in this area right here, as the storms kind of press off to the south. And that's probably what's helping to enhance this larger cluster of storms to the south and east. Again, I'm going to take the lightning down just because that's a lot to look at on a screen. Again, folks, in full disclosure, on a normal day, I would have been joining you live well ahead of these severe thunderstorm warnings, and we would have been kind of watching them through the stretch of the day. And so I want folks to get used to that instead of just rushing on and seeing storms generally as they're happening. Normally, we would have been, out ahead of this a little bit more. But again, we had a special event tonight celebrating the start of the Digital Weather Desk, and it's kind of hard to leave your own party. Wanted to, not because I wasn't having a good time, but because I needed to get some work done. Lights going off and on in Point Wilhite. Again, that does not surprise me for folks from Farmerville southeastward. If you travel the normally traveled, highways, Highway 15, some of those surrounding areas from Farmerville down to Monroe, West Monroe, that is not a place you would want to travel right now. Extremely heavy rainfall. Feel free to tag folks or in the comments if there's somebody in an area that you feel like they need to know what's going on. Feel free to pass it along to them. Feel free to share the stream. Thanks for following us. And again, this is just kind of the whole point, is to make sure that everybody is aware of what's going on so they can stay sheltered and safe. Heaviest activity that you're seeing, again, west of I-20, now well west of West Monroe. There will be a lot of areas. Again, I also want to stress that there's going to be some areas that don't see rain today. These are pretty isolated kind of in the overall scope of things, especially that storm in southern Arkansas that really kind of dove out of Ouachita County. This is pretty isolated stuff in the grand scope of severe weather. And again, we weren't necessarily expecting widespread severe weather today, but these strongest storms, as I mentioned, hot, humid conditions. They don't have a lot of steering winds in the atmosphere. Usually, a storm builds, and it just keeps moving on its merry, merry way, and then it kind of feeds off ingredients. It runs into a more favorable, less favorable environment or whatever. These storms aren't moving much, so they build up in one area and then fall down and collapse in one area. So they build up, they dump a lot of rainfall, and then they collapse. They send out all their winds after that. And it's not fun. Storming off and on a lake shore, and then Karen says drove through it in Sterlington and it was bad. I don't like to use the word bad. How bad is it going to be? Because your bad and my bad are very different. But I will agree with Karen in this regard. I don't care how you slice it. It was not a fun drive through Monroe a few minutes ago. So anyway you want to call bad, it was not fun. It was not a festival trying to drive through this stuff. Again, just east of Lake D'Arbonne. There's the lake. You can see Farmerville and Highway 2, the Crossroads community, and a lot of the other communities as well. You can see Angie was talking about in the Point Wilhite communities. There they are. They're kind of on the southern edge of some of this heaviest stuff. As this activity continues to press off to the south and west. Again, not moving your traditional east, moving southwest. For those that are joining the Digital Weather Desk for the first time, this is a digital weather platform that serves 33 parishes and counties across northern Louisiana, southern Arkansas, and western Mississippi. So if you're joining this on YouTube and you're seeing a bunch of bright colors on the screen and you're wondering what the heck's going on, this is, again, the ArkLaMiss region, southern Arkansas, northern Louisiana, and western Mississippi. And thanks so much for finding us. Feel free to like and share and subscribe and all that good stuff as well as we continue to provide this information. A recap for those that are just joining us on our different social media avenues. We are live right now on YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and X. Those are the 4 platforms we traditionally go live on. We obviously provide other information on other platforms, but those are our traditional live platforms. Just a little bit easier to interact with folks there. Thanks so much for taking the time out. We're watching 3 different severe thunderstorm warnings. One storm that is moving through portions of Columbia and Union counties, well west of El Dorado, but does include the Magnolia area, and then another severe thunderstorm or cluster of severe thunderstorms moving from Union Parish into Ouachita, and then eventually Lincoln Parish. And northeastern portions of Lincoln Parish are under a severe thunderstorm warning until 7:15. Again, 2 different warnings in northern Louisiana, one until 7, one until 7:15. It is currently 6:44 on this Tuesday evening. And again, thanks so much for making the Digital Weather Desk powered by Century Next Bank part of your day. Patricia asked, will Madison Parish get anything tonight? I would think that the likely rain chances are around 10% overnight. So they're not 0 for any particular location. I would think that the odds are kind of against you because we've had some isolated storms along the Mississippi Valley earlier in the day. As all this starts to spread westward, I think, at least in the short term, in terms of organized, strong thunderstorm activity, I would think that your chances are fairly low. Hopefully that answers your question. Switching over to the National Weather Service in Jackson, and very briefly, I think this illustrates what I'm talking about when I talk about a storm collapsing. I'm at least hoping that this is going to illustrate what I was just talking about. But there is a look at a severe thunderstorm east of Jackson in the forest area. And note how this storm explodes, does not move, and then collapses. And look at the shock wave that it sends out after. And look how quickly the storm dissipated. Those are the kinds of issues that we run into with these storms as they, again, build up. They get all menacing and pretty gross, and then they just collapse. And all of that wind and all that air that's been circulating from this storm now collapses down. Well, what happens? When it hits the ground, it can't go into the ground, so it hits the ground and goes out like a shock wave. Again, those are what downbursts, microbursts, that's what those things do. If you remember, back in May, we had the big downburst, microburst that moved through southwestern sections of the parish. That was more of a traditional straight line wind event, but we've also had other microbursts in northern portions of the parish that have downed trees here recently. I believe at the first of the month or toward the end of the month of August, we had the ones that moved through northern Monroe and through portions of Midtown as well. It caused some power outages. Tree down on a road in front of Good Hope, power line down at Wall Williams, White's Ferry, maybe a tree down on Caroli and Old Darbone in West Monroe. And that's from Lisa. So again, getting a lot of reports of a lot of trees down. That's the other booger about this is you get storms that are developing that are moving to the south and west. Well, traditionally, most of our storms, what do? Right? They develop to the west and they move east. These storms are moving from east to west. So what happens there? Well, you get a bunch of trees that are used to winds going in one direction. And so they kind of get used to that, and then all of a sudden you get winds going in another direction, and trees have a tendency to topple over a little bit more, or you'll get those snapped and uprooted trees. I don't want to speak out of turn by saying this, but our storm in southern Arkansas looks really, really wimpy compared to what it looked like about an hour ago when the warning was issued. Made its way into out of Ouachita Parish, County, excuse me. Made its way into northern sections of Columbia County, and since then, you can see the outflow associated with it. So again, you're starting to see the collapse of that storm. So the intensity of the rain's coming down, but there's probably still some gusty winds that are surging out to the south ahead of that storm. So just be aware of that. Let's zoom in. Hailing on Phillips Ferry Road. Art and Michelle, if you guys could give me a heads up on where Phillips Ferry Road is. I'm not familiar with that. I know a lot of roads. Not familiar with that one. Robin says that blew up fast. A lot of them did today. And again, it's heat, humidity, instability in the atmosphere. We talk about severe weather events, and typically you need, we call it SLIM, shear, lift, instability, and moisture. You need all of those to really get like a big, significant, severe weather outbreak. Well, today we have instability. We have moisture. We don't have a lot of lift in the atmosphere. We don't have a front, or a sea breeze can help out with that. But we don't have this monstrous front moving through, so you don't have a lot of lift. But you don't have hardly any. You have hardly any shear. So you've got half of the ingredients of these storms. Again, they blow up, and then they collapse, and you run into the same issues that we're running into right now. Hey, out east of the Crossroads community along Highway, the junction of Highway 2 and Highway 143, that's you're probably seeing some small hail. To the west of the Spencer community. Again, this would be right along Highway 143, kind of at the junction of Highway 2 and 143. I'll go in and see at Phillips Ferry Road. No need for you to tell me where Phillips Ferry Road is, Art, Michelle. We found it, and it's just north of Highway 2. So you said Phillips Ferry Road, and there we are. I did not mean to just immediately zoom to your street, but here we are. Just east of the Crossroads community. So that verifies that. Thanks so much for the report. If you have reports that you can relay to me, feel free to send them along. After the fact, I usually send a lot of these to the National Weather Service so they can know whether their warning was a good idea or a bad idea. We all want to get this right. We want to be as accurate as possible. So the Weather Service likes to know, oh, we shouldn't have issued that warning, or yes, we should have issued that warning, and so on and so forth. Just looking at some of the videos that are being sent in Downsville Highway 552. A lot of small hail being reported, so that shouldn't be a surprise. Let me go to the loop, just because it gives us something to look at. Quarter-size hail in Rocky Branch, that makes sense too. Not that you need me agreeing with you, but yeah, that kind of checks out. Also, just quick check. As storms kind of ebb and flow along the outflow of these storms, I want to keep an eye out on what's left over in portions of Franklin Parish. It doesn't look overly menacing right now. Again, I'm bouncing between two different radar images too, so just bear with me. This is National Weather Service in Jackson's radar. This is a storm that's going to be right along Highway 425. So there's Baskin, Highway 425. Here's Winnsboro. And obviously it's going to impact areas along Highway 17 just east of town as well. So again, if you're in that area, 30-minute loop's too much. Let me fix that. Again, you hear me clicking away. I'm just kind of bouncing between a lot of different radar vantage points so we can look at what we need to look at. And again, this storm's kind of marching south along Highway 425 and along Highway 17. Has already went through the Baskin community. If anybody's here on from Baskin, just kind of let us know what happened when I would assume it's just rainfall. And then I'll switch back over to the National Weather Service in Shreveport. Now you can see the outflow starting to rush out from these storms. When the green starts to clear out like this, usually in this area right here, it means we're starting to get a gust front, outflow boundary. So for folks in Ruston, Chatham, and some of these areas in Jackson Parish, don't be surprised if you pick up some gusty winds without rain here in the short term. It's that gust front kind of rushing out ahead of the storms. The rain can't keep up, but the winds, they hit the ground, they rush out, and they just kind of outrun the thunderstorms. That happens sometimes. So if you pick up those gusty winds, that's what's happening. You're going to go back to the loop. Art Michelle say, no more hail, Phillips Ferry Road, just light rain right now. Again, as quickly as they develop, they will also fizzle rather rapidly as well. Severe thunderstorm warning is being canceled for the northern sections of Ouachita Parish. Again, there's two different warnings in effect. I'm going to take the lightning down again just to avoid confusion. So what we're talking about is where this area... I got to get better with the telestrator. This area right here, over like the northwestern or far western sections of Ouachita Parish, it's no longer under a severe thunderstorm warning. You were under one from this storm in Lincoln and Union parishes, but when they kind of refreshed the warning, if you will, they took you guys out of it. Most of the central sections of Ouachita Parish still under a severe thunderstorm warning. That goes until 7. We got about another 7 minutes on that. So this stream will go for at least another 6 minutes. We're going to follow up until 7 o'clock, and then we'll kind of make some decisions there. I say we. I will make some decisions there. Yeah, Vita says it's in Calhoun right now. I would certainly believe that. Heaviest rainfall is probably going to be just northeast of West Ouachita High School, or very closer to West Ouachita High School now as you start moving out toward Cable, Louisiana, and Mount Pleasant, some of the Linwood community areas south of I-20. 30-33, out toward Shinny Drew and some of those spots. Probably seeing some heavier rainfall. The heaviest returns we're seeing are near the Terrells community as you move, again, the busiest traveled roads, the Point Wilhite areas, and folks traveling from the Farmerville area or from Lake D'Arbonne, those surrounding regions, southeast toward the Monroe-West Monroe area. If you have a drive to make from Farmerville to West Monroe, don't make it right now. Just wait. Again, for those that have driven through it, they can also attest that it is not fun to drive through some of the cloud bursts that we're dealing with currently. A lot of heavy rainfall, some pretty frequent lightning. Check on those power outages real quick. See what kind of new number we have. Still at 2,500 without power. Those are customers, 2,500 customers without power in Ouachita Parish. Concordia Parish also reporting some sporadic outages as well. Again, a look at the severe weather alerts. No watches are out. These are pretty sporadic, isolated, severe thunderstorms. Shouldn't be a huge surprise for us to run into these this time of year in this area, given the overall pattern. But severe warnings are still severe warnings, and for the storms that came through the Monroe Regional Airport, again, 68-mile-an-hour wind gusts about an hour and a half ago. These storms are packing a punch. So, again, just wanted to join folks, regardless of time, to let them know how this is unfolding. As the stream now hits 30 minutes flat, thanks so much for taking the time out of your day and joining us on a new platform. I know this is new. I'm learning new things every day. I know a lot of folks probably think, you've been doing weather for 20 years. It's the same. It is extremely different to be balancing some of the new things that I'm balancing and to try to think of how to bring this to you in the most efficient and informative way possible. If you have suggestions along the way, I'd love to hear them. Appreciate those as well. Heather says, hailing in West Monroe off Caples Road, I would believe that. Most of it should be relatively small hail. Obviously, you're getting it. I'm not, so you would know more than me. But we're starting to see a little bit less organization in the overall clusters of storms as they move off to the southwest. And so I'll stop for a second. Let's loop this over the last hour so we get a better general idea of how things have kind of panned out as this activity's moved off to the south and west. Let's take the radar full screen for a second so you can kind of see what's going on. For those that are just joining the live stream, again, severe thunderstorm warnings ongoing as we approach the 7 o'clock hour. There are technically 3 out in the digital weather desk coverage area. 2 of those are set to go to expire at 7 o'clock. The one for central sections of Ouachita Parish and far southeastern Union Parish, and then another for portions of Columbia County and western Union County. Jenny, thanks so much for your kind words. Appreciate you joining the Digital Weather Desk, powered by Century Next Bank. And just, again, enjoying making this possible and making this feasible for you as folks are heading out to dinner at 7 o'clock at night and planning the rest of their Tuesday evening. I would assume that there were junior high football games perhaps planned for the evening, or maybe junior varsity games. I know a lot of those are played earlier in the week. Maybe some middle school games and things like that. Again, this is obviously going to rain on those parades. And here's a new severe thunderstorm warning out. Let me pause this so we get a new look at the new, very large severe thunderstorm warning that has been issued downstream until 8 o'clock for Jackson, Lincoln, Caldwell, Ouachita, Wynn, and Union parishes. Severe thunderstorms capable of producing up to 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts and quarter-sized hail continue to move off to the west. What's the Weather Service saying? Weather Service is saying these are moving off to the southwest at 15, 20, give or take. Sounds fairly right. And we also have a new severe thunderstorm warning for the storm in Columbia County. So the first warning has been allowed to expire. This does not include Union County, but severe thunderstorm in and around Magnolia. Again, 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts and quarter-sized hail possible, moving to the southwest at 15 miles per hour. Kerry, thanks so much for the heads up. Steady rain and thunder at his location in western Ouachita Parish. Again, this is Columbia County, Arkansas. For those that are joining us, YouTube, Facebook, Twitch, and X. These are our live stream platforms, if you will. And this is where we are. Southern Arkansas, Columbia County, Magnolia, Highway 371, Highway 82, 344, probably all being impacted by a severe thunderstorm that's capable of producing quarter-sized hail and damaging wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour. That warning goes until 7:45, and then let's hop back over to the larger cluster of storms moving off to the southwest. That warning goes until 8, again, damaging wind gusts up to 60 miles per hour and quarter-sized hail possible. The highest radar returns, the most active weather that we're seeing in terms of rainfall right now is just south of the Darbone community, moving southwest. So the Cedarton community, Downsville, the Douglas and Sibley areas of Lincoln Parish. You folks are up next as these storms continue to move off to the south and west. Real quick, we've got all these different types of things that we can show you, so let's show them. Let's try to take a look at some arrival times for these storms as they move to the southwest at 20 miles per hour. Again, here shortly after 7, so about 5-10 minutes before, and I wouldn't be surprised if the winds have not already picked up in your location. Shudrant 7:15, Grambling 7:50, Ruston 7:35. The Jonesboro Hodge area probably right around 8 o'clock. Give or take, probably 5 or 10 minutes in either direction, depending on how fast these storms move. So those are your estimated arrival times as these storms move to the southwest. Let's turn the loop back on. Again, I would not be surprised to start seeing some stronger wind gusts well out ahead of the main lines. As the outflow associated with these storms continues to surge off to the south and west as well. Debbie asks, "What time for West Monroe?" Really, to be honest with you, Debbie, if you haven't seen a lot of activity yet, you may not see much, because these things are rocking and rolling through West Monroe as we speak. If you haven't seen much, you may not get much. And in all fairness, there's also a little bit of a gap right along I-20. Pause it for a second, and you can kind of see this gap that we're talking about from kind of the Indian Lake subdivision all the way to Highway 80 and I-20 out. This would be out toward Well Road. This is the first Calhoun exit here, so you're talking, Well Road, Shinny Drew Road, and this is the Shinny Drew Road right here. I know you guys can't see my mouse cursor. This is Shinny Drew. And so, again, here's the Indian Lake subdivision on the top right-hand side of your screen. A lot of areas kind of shot the gap there and are perhaps seeing an area that's not as active as folks to your north and to your south. Still not out of the woods yet. You're still under a severe thunderstorm warning. There still could be some gusty winds out there as well. But the most active weather is now moving into northeastern sections of Lincoln Parish. As I mentioned, the Douglas and the Sibley communities. Same spot, Lisa. Cypress and Vancell Road, those areas out in West Monroe. You guys are kind of shooting the gap here. Not a bad thing. Getting some pretty cool pictures from Alex Noel, who is en route back to Baton Rouge after dropping in and paying us a visit today. We appreciate her. I did just get an email, folks, asking about the app. App's still not available yet. We're getting there, folks. We're getting there. It is not available yet. I would think a couple weeks-ish, somewhere in that ballpark. I know I've been saying that for a while. And if you joined us in our earlier forecast earlier today, I'm still fingers crossed, maybe October 1. Well, I don't know. As soon as I know more stuff, I'll let you know more. I can promise you that. I really kind of transparency means a lot to me, so I'd rather just be honest with you guys when I know more. There are a lot of things that are kind of out of our control. Getting reports from Mike Larry by Power Sports, by the way. He's sending me some heads up. He said he keeps seeing lightning pop out the window. Westlake subdivision. Yeah, there are some areas that are getting some very vivid lightning from these storms. Especially as you move out, like I said, south of Lake D'Arbonne, as you move into Lincoln Parish, that's probably where the highest concentration of lightning is currently. East Monroe, Claudia, wondering about East Monroe. Again, these storms are moving west, they're moving away from your area. So if you really didn't see much from that first wave of storms, and they kind of developed right over you and then moved out of the area. So if you didn't see much, you may not see much in some of those spots. So again, depending on whether that's good or bad for you, it's just a matter of whether it's good or bad for you. Keith says Calvert Estate slowing down. I would assume it'll be cart path only for the rest of the afternoon. East Monroe, we already talked about that. Coming through Ruston now, no rain yet, but the strong winds, and that's what we were talking about, the outflow arriving ahead of the strongest storms. Let's go over to base velocity. Maybe we can see it here. Yeah. Storm relative velocity may show it as well. It's probably a little bit easier to see with base. Yeah, but you can see the winds, those winds moving and outrunning. That's them right there. Kind of outrunning the heaviest rainfall. So, again, that's that gust front, if you will, surging out from these storms and kind of outrunning them as they move off to the south and west. Don't want to pay all attention to what's going on in northern Louisiana. That's the larger, more menacing thunderstorm. But, again, a reminder for our folks, boy, this storm's really coming down quickly in Magnolia. This storm may not make it all the way to 745 as a severe thunderstorm warning. It just may not make it. The strongest winds with that storm may actually be well away from the main complex of storms. Also watching a storm in southern Bradley County. Again, as we start to lose daytime heating, a lot of this is going to lose its oomph and it's going to lose its organization. So, Randy says starting in Calhoun off 80 now, I believe it. Caldwell Parish, that's kind of a tough call, Casey, because the northern portions of the parish are under the severe thunderstorm warning currently. And so if you're in Caldwell Parish and you're wondering, great, I'm under a severe thunderstorm warning, it just depends on location because, again, Columbia, Grace, and Clarks, they're not under the severe thunderstorm warning, but as you move kind of toward the Bosco and kind of the Caldwell, Washita Parish line, those are the folks, the northern half, northwestern half, that are under that severe thunderstorm warning. So, again, there's still a window of opportunity for some gusty winds and some heavy rainfall to move through those regions as well. Mary says, got bad off White's Ferry, heavy rain, strong winds. Calming down now. Thanks for the heads up. First off, you're welcome. Don't thank me. Thank the local businesses that make this happen. The weather is the easy part, at least for me. Informing you and telling you what's going on, that's the easy part. So, again, we're happy to do it. South of Monroe, 165, that's your area. Yeah, it's those are the areas we're watching. If folks are out there and they're seeing these severe thunderstorm warnings and they're thinking, what about my area? Is there anything in tornadic? These storms are moving the opposite direction of a tornadic thunderstorm. They would need to have some kind of easterly component. They are moving in the opposite direction. Corey says heavy rainfall, strong winds, lightning starting just north of Douglas. I am not surprised by that by any stretch. First off, thank you so much, folks, for sending in information. This job's a heck of a lot easier when I have you fine folks telling me what's going on out there. And surface observations are very important. But as always, I just want folks to be safe. Always get your information after the fact, but I would much rather you be sheltered indoors, away from windows, and prepared for these storms as they move through. And again, the heaviest activity is essentially from the Culbertson community down to Downsville and the Douglas, Sibley areas, basically just off the Shudret exit of I-20 as you move from Monroe to Ruston. So there's probably a lot of folks. It's a pretty traveled area, Highway 80, I-20. In some of those surrounding spots, please exercise caution. If you can delay your travel, I would highly suggest you do so. Watching the storm that's moving its way through Franklin Parish, it now has what we call a significant weather advisory with it for up to 50-mile-an-hour winds. So let's take a look at that storm. From the National Weather Service radar in Jackson. Now crawling along and south of Winnsboro. From Liddyville to Winnsboro to the Chase community, which is along 425. The Brownell community, which is along Highway 4. Again, nothing severe in that area, but a potent storm to watch. And I'll go back to, and there's a lot of different radar modes, a lot of different storms that to watch as they move through the region. Again, I just kind of keep an eye on other information. There's a lot of information streams. Again, for folks that are joining this digital weather platform for the first time, A lot of new. Sarah asks, am I able to use the weather Doppler? These are all technically Doppler radars that we're using. I am utilizing all of our National Weather Service radars out of Shreveport, Jackson, Fort Johnson, Fort Polk, whatever you want to call it, Little Rock, Lake Charles, and the New Orleans area, which is actually near Baton Rouge. Any other commercially licensed radars I do not have access to. But that's okay, because these warnings are issued by the Weather Service and based off of radar products, so I just interpret what I see and relay it to you. Lots of folks joining us on YouTube and Facebook and on X tonight. Thanks so much for hanging out with us. Like I said, I know that these types of storms are kind of unnerving. People wake up, or they for a lot of these folks, I say wake up. They're headed home from work or whatever, and they see what's going on, and it's unnerving. So that's what this service is here to provide, is to be here and kind of to provide a presence, a consistent presence to what's going on across the region. Okay, we just had a YouTube comment. It is exclusively in Spanish. And I appreciate your comment. And I took Spanish in high school. I am not overly fluent. Actually, I'm not fluent at all. But I do see Atlantico, and I see Tropical, and I see 90%. And I see 7 dias. So I'm assuming we're talking about the Atlantic feature out over the open Atlantic that has a 90% chance of development over the next 7 days. Jay, thank you so much for your comment. I appreciate that. We will continue to keep an eye on that as it moves somewhat closer to our area. Again, for folks that are joining this live stream for the first time, this is a digital weather platform that serves southern Arkansas, northern Louisiana, and western Mississippi. We do a lot of tropical discussions as well, and hope to bring you more information like that about that when we're not dealing with as much time-sensitive stuff. But thanks so much for checking in. Again, I got a lot of folks just joining in. Christian hopping in as well. Thanks so much to everybody that is taking the time. Rick, tree down on loop at Park. Power outage in entire area. I can confirm that. I am generally in that same area without telling everybody where I live. But we live relatively close, and we're one of the few residences with power. Also, another number one reason why I'm getting a generator installed, because we can't do this without electricity. So it's very important for me to make sure that this household is prepared for winter weather season, so we can inform you without power interruptions and things of that nature. So again, I'm just kind of watching all the storms. There's going to be times on a digital weather platform like this, I don't have as many rules and restrictions in terms of what we need to say, how we need to say it, and all this stuff. So there will be times where I just don't talk, and you'll see me here, and we'll just be hanging out together. Especially those 2 or 3 or 4 o'clock in the morning days. Sometimes there's just not a lot to say, but the being here and being present and being able to answer questions and be interactive with you, that's the most important part. Everything changes, so we're just kind of learning along the way, and I'm learning from you folks too, what's good and what's bad and what's helpful and what's not. Remember how I said that severe thunderstorm warning in Columbia County may not make it to 7:45? It has made it to 7:16. It is gone. Severe thunderstorm warning for southern Arkansas for Columbia County has been canceled. So now we just have the one severe thunderstorm warning to focus on. With the largest, most robust activity with this storm, northeast of the Douglas Community, Sibley, east, west of Downsville, and headed toward Highway 167. How's Union looking? Well, depends on your location, Dakota. The southern part of the parish still kind of knee-deep in it with the heavy rainfall and some gusty winds and some lightning. Northern half of the parish is fine. I guess I should have asked, are you talking Union County or Union Parish? Probably should have been more specific there. Union County's really looking fine. Union Parish, depends on your location. Sarah and Shay, thanks so much for hopping in on the Digital Weather Desk. It's amazing, and this is just an observation, it's amazing how much the viewer numbers change when there's actually stuff to talk about. And that's totally understandable. There's no reason for it. There's no reason. If you check the weather, it's going to be hot and humid with a bubble-up thunderstorm today. There's really no reason to check it more than once or twice in a day. But when you start hearing the thunder crackle outside, that's when it gets a little bit more important. That's the whole point of all this. Dakota says Central Union Parish. Yeah, generally fine. These storms kind of moving away from your area. Carolyn, so glad you're still here for us. That's very, very kind. I'm happier than you are, I can assure you. Christian says those graphics are nice. Thanks. We worked very hard on them. Friends from Barron and myself, and also had a lot of help from an artist friend of mine named Eric Pickett that helped design our logo. And did a lot of great work from that. He's out of Central Arkansas, and he has been a friend of the family for a long time, and he was super helpful in that regard too. So, again, all of this doesn't happen without a lot of teamwork from a lot of folks. Kat asks, I'm in Shudrant. When will this pass? We have a tree down. It's going to be a second, unfortunately. In fact, you're kind of just in the thick of it right now. It may take another 15 to 20 minutes for these storms to clear your area. Maybe not that long, maybe 10 minutes, but it's going to be a second. So if there is a tree down in your area, unfortunately, you're going to be in the thick of it for a second. Sharon says hitting Calhoun now should not be quite as intense as your neighbors to the west and to the south. Linda is watching from Morehouse Parish. Thank you so much for joining us. Morehouse Parish not seeing much, but I appreciate you being here anyway. Just checking the phone, make sure I'm not missing anything. So I have a lot of folks asking, why are these storms moving from northeast to southwest? It's pretty simple. As I mentioned, there's a lot of different things happening. I say it's pretty simple. It's not that simple, actually. But we're underneath a big ridge of high pressure where the upper level pattern is starting to become a little bit weaker. So you get these storms. I'll get to all that in a minute. Thanks from south of Shudrant. You're welcome. Streaming on Facebook and YouTube. Thank you. Wind and rain in Cartwright. That does not surprise me in the least. Anna wants to know about Iris. Iris is going to see, you're under a severe thunderstorm warning right now. First and foremost, you are under a severe thunderstorm warning. But it does look like there is a little bit of a gap in the more intense thunderstorms, so you may kind of squeak through that gap. That said, I'd be sheltered. Be in your safe place. If you're under a warning, take the warning seriously and do what you got to do. So what I was talking about is that we were under this weaker upper level pattern. There are not a lot of large steering mechanisms in the atmosphere. We don't have any big mid-level troughs or anything like that. So as I mentioned, what happens is these storms bubble up over one area and they collapse over one area. When they collapse, they send out almost a shock wave of gusty winds associated with it. Well, those winds go in all different directions, and depending on the ingredients of as those storms go in any one or as that wind goes in any one direction, it could allow for little isolated storms to bubble off that. That creates chain reactions to those storms, more outflow boundaries, and then more storms and more outflow boundaries, and so on and so forth, until the sun setting and cooling the atmosphere kind of brings an end to all of it. Think of it as a bunch of kids fighting in the back seat of a car, and these two fight, and then all of a sudden, there's a big explosion, and then these two fight, and there's a big explosion, and then this one and this one fight, and there's another big explosion, and then all of a sudden, at some point, parent goes, "All right, enough," and everybody stops. It's a terrible analogy, but it's the first one that popped into my mind. Again, a live stream's been we're approaching an hour now. And that was a little later than we'd prefer. Again, for those that are hopping in, these storms have a history of producing 68-mile-an-hour wind gust at the Monroe Regional Airport earlier. Go ahead and take the radar full screen. I will stay with you here for a second. So, again, don't panic. I'm not going anywhere. Just want to let you take the radar for a full screen for a second and kind of keep an eye on activity as it continues to move through the region. Again, thanks so much for joining the Digital Weather Desk, powered by Century Next Bank. I'm Jared Floyd. This is a relatively new digital weather platform that has been up and rolling officially for 2 weeks and a day. And these are our first organized strong to severe thunderstorms that we've really had to tackle via live, except for the tornado warning that we had, and that was back in August, so that doesn't count. Karen says, thunder in Ruston looks bad here. I certainly agree with you, and perhaps the strongest parts of these storms will be headed toward Ruston shortly, and then also toward the Ears and Chatham areas. May not make it as far south as Columbia, but may actually make it as far south as Columbia. As you see, Columbia, Bank Springs, Grayson, Clarks, all along 165, kind of the southern flank of this storm moving through the Riverton community, as these storms generally move off to the south and west. If you are just finding us on Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, or X, make sure that you hit the follow, like, subscribe, whatever button on whatever platform you're on, so that you can find us a little bit easier next time. Again, thanks so much for taking time out of the day to stay updated with the weather. An informed community is a safer community, and so that's kind of the whole goal of this, is just to make sure that everybody is as informed as possible. This cluster of storms starting to spread out a smidge, so now you've got kind of two clusters, or two segments. The strongest part of the storm, and then the other strong part of the storm. So we may end up having to branch out into two separate severe thunderstorm warnings. Kelly says, thank you so much for continuing to keep us all informed and safe. It's really, again, it's a honor and a pleasure to do so. All I ask is that if you can, when you can, thank our local business sponsors. Do business with them if you can, But if you don't need their services for whatever reason, there's not a lot of times in somebody's life you may never need a bankruptcy attorney, or you may not need a roofing company right now or whatever. But just tell them thank you and let them know that you're paying attention to the fact that they support this and are making this happen. Approaching 7:30 on this Tuesday evening. Thanks so much for joining the Digital Weather Desk live. If you have been following for the last couple of weeks, we do the Digital Weather Desk AM, midday, PM. Those are our typical kind of somewhat regularly scheduled streams. And then when we go live, it's just the Digital Weather Desk live. That's how I have it formatted for right now until I come up with something different. I like that idea. Still watching severe thunderstorms that are making their way toward Lincoln Parish, central Lincoln Parish, along I-20. Probably some very heavy rainfall along I-20 west from, say, the Calhoun exit all the way really to probably the first or second Ruston exit. Not fun driving down I-20 right now. Same can be said for folks along Highway 165 as you move toward from Bosco to Riverton across portions of northern Caldwell Parish. Again, bear with me. I go through a lot of different information streams, and I think that's also why I'm so excited to bring this to you is now I have every information stream that I could possibly have and need right here. Communication with the National Weather Service. People are constantly sending me messages and storm reports by phone. We have the radar right in front. Basically, anything I need to let you know about, I can see from right here in this chair. And that's pretty cool. Gary says he pulled over in Ruston. Good call. Lots of wind and rain. Please be safe and be smart there. Exercise caution. The heaviest rain is kind of, again, east of Ruston. To be honest with you, Gary, probably right smack dab where you are. Here's, again, you can see Pipes Road, and here's 145 out near the Shudron exit. And then you can see the Farmerville Highway, first Ruston exit there as you start moving into Ruston. So, guess it depends on which direction you're traveling as to whether that's the first Ruston exit or not. Amy says getting pretty windy in Weston. I would believe that as well. As we go back to the northern sections of Caldwell Parish and we kind of follow, all those lines are different lightning strikes. Getting loud and gusty in Riverton. Yeah, you folks are kind of right in the thick of it there. Along Highway 4 as you move out of Riverton toward the Vixen communities, and then you start moving back into southwestern sections of Ouachita Parish, far eastern sections of Jackson Parish. Again, this is an active severe thunderstorm warning until 8 o'clock. So while you may not hear tornado warning, just want folks to again, be sheltered, interior portion of your home, away from windows and doors. Again, I don't want to sit here and say put as many walls between you. Again, it's not necessary. It's not a tornado warning, but you want to be inside, and you don't want to be near windows. I've had reports of folks, taking lightning injuries from being too close to windows and things. I'm not trying to scare you, but weather is weird. It's unpredictable. It's hard to know what's gonna happen. So just be in your safe place. All right, let's loop the radar again. Karen says, very dark in Ruston. And I believe it. Hey, folks out in Weston, you kind of out ahead of it. Oh, I get it. Sorry, Amy. I kind of You're catching the outflow. And again, you're probably getting winds without rain, but the lead edge of the winds with these storms are all the way out here. So as you loop it, you can see what I'm talking about. That large arcing line surging out from these storms. And typically what happens is as the outflow moves farther and farther away from these storms, instead of riding along that outflow and using it kind of as a lifting mechanism in the atmosphere, it's kind of getting left behind. So now you're starting to see along the I-20 corridor, which was once much heavier rainfall. Look at the radar trends. So I take all this stuff off, and we put in a loop, and all those purples and darker purples and even blacks on the screen, there they go. Well, outflows outrunning a lot of these storms, so they're starting to hit their weakening trend. That said, farther southward, these storms are a smidge closer to the outflow. They're kind of riding along that boundary a little bit more. So they're staying a smidge more organized. So you're, instead of being, 15, 20 miles out ahead, now you're talking about 7 or 10 miles ahead. There's a big difference there. And these are the types of things that we can go into in a long-form live stream that normally I would not be able to have brought you in a past life. There's so much when you're in the middle of tornado warning coverage. It's just tornado. Where's the tornado? Where is it headed? Where's it going now? We can be a little bit more interactive and a little bit more educational when we're talking about severe thunderstorms. And if you've ever followed me talking about severe thunderstorms, this large polygon, this orange box that's in north central Louisiana does not mean that a continuous wall of 60-mile-an-hour winds is moving your way. It means that within the strongest areas of thunderstorms that you see currently, there will be opportunities for isolated wind gusts of up to 60 miles per hour. As the second member of my weather team starts to join in, Stanley, the chief forecaster. Yes, he is just a cat, but I think I just heard him wander in. Or maybe he just wandered out. I don't know. Also, another thing, it's one of those general rules of thumb in the weather community, following lightning strike counts. Usually, most storms, as they start to weaken, they produce less lightning. So again, it's one of those, it's a guideline, not a rule. Which you see, we've gone from 1,900 lightning strikes now down to less than 1,600 lightning strikes over the last hour. So we're on that downward trend. If I take the storms in southern Arkansas out of the equation, we've gone from 1,700 lightning strikes down to less than 1,500 lightning strikes. Again, kind of nerding out over the numbers there, and it's a guideline, not a rule, but we should be on the downward trend of these storms. Go ahead and hang out with you for a little bit longer, though. I pushed the wrong button. My apologies. That's the button I was trying to push. Still here, folks. I had to plug up my phone charger. Let's check the power outages real quick. Yeah. All right, so the numbers are starting to climb. You're starting to see some outages in Bradley County and in Columbia County, where we had that storm in southern Arkansas. Carrie says heading eastbound on I-20. Ruston's 10 miles ahead. Lots of lightning in front of us. I would call that observation astute. 3,000 customers without power in Monroe right now. Again, a check of the severe weather alerts. They're made possible by Allegiance Health Network. It's just the one. So let's go back to the radar. There it is again. We're on our downward trend on this storm, though. Boy, the Ruston part of this storm has really fallen apart. So for folks like that are on I-20 and that are seeing the lightning in the distance, the storm's bite is probably not as bad as its bark now compared to where it was about an hour ago. So a little bit of good news there. Still seeing it's a fairly potent appendage of this storm in southeastern Jackson Parish and northern Caldwell Parish, from southeast of Eris to the Annabelle and Cypress and Vixen communities, and then eastward toward Blankston. As we mentioned, Riverton's probably getting still some pretty heavy rainfall. Far northeastern Wynn Parish is also included in this warning. So areas like Chester and some of those folks in far northeastern Wynn Parish, I acknowledge that that's a pretty rural part of Wynn Parish. There's not a lot of organized, highly populated areas, but the Sykes community and some of those surrounding spots. Let folks know as folks start to kind of head off of the live stream tonight. Don't blame you as we start kind of heading this downward trend. As we approach the 8 o'clock hour, we'll probably wind the live coverage down as well. Just kind of want to make sure that nothing misbehaves from this storm as we continue over the next few minutes or so. Severe thunderstorm warning canceled for Union Parish, which is not a big surprise considering that the vast majority of that storm has kind of moved out of the region. So what happens is the National Weather Service, they issue these warnings, and then they come back and they issue kind of an update to the warning after 20 or 30 minutes. Say a warning's 45 minutes long. After 15, 20 minutes, they kind of give you an update on the storm. So obviously when this warning was issued, it was still moving through Union Parish, and now it's cleared Union Parish. The update takes a good bit of Union and Ouachita parishes out of the warning. So again, it's that still the leading edge across Lincoln Parish and through Jackson Parish, far southwestern Ouachita Parish, far northeastern Wynn Parish, and northern Caldwell Parish that is currently under the warning. Jessica wants to know, did this come out of nowhere? That's a loaded question. Yes and no. We knew that we were going to see some isolated thunderstorms today. We knew that there were ingredients that could support severe thunderstorms if storms could get to that point. In terms of the kind of the larger, more widespread nature of these severe thunderstorms, I would say that was a smidge of a surprise. It shouldn't be shocking this time of year to get 3 or 4 or 5 severe thunderstorm warnings in an afternoon. That said, it still can catch us by surprise. Me personally, not surprised to see this. I can understand how the consumer would be surprised to see this. I will say I was very much surprised to see a 68-mile-an-hour wind gust at the Monroe Regional Airport today. These storms, when they start, producing some of these water-loaded downbursts and things that we were talking about and some of the outflow that's associated with them, 45, 50, or even 60-mile-an-hour wind gusts, you kind of go, oh, okay, yeah, you see. 70-mile-an-hour wind gusts, that's a doozy. 68, that's a punch right there. And so that does not answer your question. But yes and no. the severe weather nature of this, I would say, yeah, it probably caught a good number of us by surprise. The isolated storms, not really. And guess what? We do this whole process again tomorrow, folks, and we could, yeah. And like I said, that's kind of the whole thing. Is you're like, so many were shocked, but you're not a weather person. When you're if you don't follow it on a daily basis, and that's the other thing, is we've been in this same rut where you could see a pop-up thunderstorm, but you probably won't. It's hot, it's humid. Well, today was our day that we saw the larger clusters of storms pop up. You get these summertime storms, and it doesn't take much for a few of them to become severe. But when you're stuck in the same rut over and over and over and over, and we've been saying same thing over and over and over, you could get a pop-up thunderstorm, but you probably won't. Well, today was the day for everybody, and so again, I appreciate the question, and it's very good. It's a very legitimate question as well. Power out in Downsville and Calhoun. Any major wind gust report in the Frosttown area? I don't have any reports from that area. That's not to say that we. That's the other thing about these summertime thunderstorms. All it takes is one tree falling in the right spot, and it can cause a lot of widespread outages, or it can cause some significant outages. So, again, I don't have any reports from that area in terms of any extreme wind gusts. But it's something I wouldn't be surprised if maybe we ran into some 50 or 55 mile an hour wind gusts in some of those locations. Again, really kind of hitting the tail end of this storm as it has now made its way through portions of Jackson and Caldwell parishes. And we'll get ready to start shutting down the live stream in just a second. Again, I think this storm's kind of on the tail end and really has about another 15 minutes or so of active warning, and that's about it. For those that have shown and echoed their appreciation to the live streams, this is something that you should get used to. Will we be on live for every severe thunderstorm warning? That is physically impossible. We just get so many of them over our area. It doesn't work that way. But when we have large clusters of severe thunderstorms, yeah, I want to provide live coverage for that stuff. I don't feel like live coverage should be confined to just tornado warnings. Tropical weather, winter weather, floods, severe weather. Folks crave information, and we're going to bring it to them. Kevin says, creepy seeing lightning cutting through the night sky like veins on a leaf near Calhoun. Yeah, some of that elevated lightning can get wicked. Weird stuff to look at. Fun to look at until it's not fun to look at. Debbie, I appreciate you as well. Thanks so much for joining in. And again, for those that have been echoing their appreciation, I also just want to remind you that the Digital Weather Desk, powered by Century Next Bank, is made possible by the businesses that you see there on your screen. Again, you may not always need to sell your car to somebody. You may not need lumber. You may not need a bankruptcy attorney or something like that. But let them know that you appreciate the fact that they are investing in your community safety. This does not work on the bad weather days without somebody helping support the good weather days. And let's be honest, we don't pay as much attention to the weather on good weather days. But this is something that's here every day for you, at your disposal, as you need it. Multiple weather forecasts a day, live stream coverage when you need it, an app on the way eventually soon. For those that are wondering about the app, it's on the way. As soon as I know more, you'll know more. And an integrated website that is constantly undergoing changes. You have an interactive radar right there on the website. Just go to digitalweatherdesk.com, click on the forecast tab, and you can pick up the radar there as well. All right, we're going to wrap things up as we continue through this Tuesday night. Thanks so much for joining us on this live stream. We still have an active severe thunderstorm warning out for about another 15 minutes or so, but really clearly these storms are on a downward trend. How can you support what we're doing? Follow us on all your favorite social media platforms: Facebook, Instagram, X, Twitch, TikTok. I just created a new social media platform: Twitch, TikTok, Threads, and YouTube. And thanks so much for taking time out to join us on the Digital Weather Desk, powered by Century Next Bank. Your radar products have been made possible by Brown's Roofing. Every shingle radar product is made possible by them. And if the radar's been unkind to your roof, obviously, you can call them for a free inspection, or you can log on to brownsroofingla.com. I will continue to keep an eye on these storms. Make sure nothing really kind of rejuvenates or anything like that, but as we head toward the deeper parts of the night, I would expect a weakening trend. Overnight shower storm can't be ruled out as well. We'll keep an eye on that too. Stay safe.